The winter of 1709 represents one of the most extreme and harsh climatic events ever recorded in Europe, a period during which a cold wave covered much of Europe and had a profound impact on the Italian peninsula. During this phase, temperatures recorded in various parts of Europe dropped significantly below seasonal averages, reaching values close to minus 20 degrees Celsius in many areas. In several countries, temperatures fell below minus 30 degrees Celsius. This extreme cold had a deep impact on agriculture, daily life, and political stability at the time. Understanding the causes, dynamics, and consequences of this extreme weather event can provide a valuable historical perspective on how to address current environmental and meteorological challenges. The 1709 cold wave was caused by a combination of climatic and atmospheric factors that interacted in a complex way. Some hypotheses formulated by contemporary scientists include variations in atmospheric circulation over Europe, North Atlantic oscillations, and the extensive intrusion of Arctic air from very high latitudes. This heavier, colder Arctic air spread across most of the continent and remained for weeks in regions where winter was generally milder. This air mass, coupled with weak westerly winds, contributed to the prolonged cold. Solar radiation during this period was slightly below average due to a minimum in solar activity, a phenomenon known as the Maunder minimum, during which sunspots were particularly rare. This slight decline in solar radiation contributed to the lower average temperatures. Some researchers suggest that a series of large volcanic eruptions in the preceding decades may have altered the composition of the atmosphere, favoring harsher climatic conditions. Therefore, Europe in 1709 faced a combination of factors, from unfavorable baric balance to minimal solar energy and even potential volcanic aerosol effects. The effects of this frozen winter were felt intensely in Italy, where northern, central, and even some southern regions experienced exceptional snowfall and prolonged frost. Communication routes, already difficult in pre-industrial times, became almost impassable due to snow and ice. This isolation affected the transportation of goods and the supply of cities. Among the most affected regions were Lombardy, Tuscany, and Emilia, where frost damaged future crops, leading to a stagnation in the pastoral agricultural economy. In cities like Rome, Florence, and Milan, residents faced rising food prices, limited access to firewood, and a shortage of unfrozen water. The poorest segments of the population suffered from a lack of means of subsistence, while wealthier groups attempted to import goods from less affected areas. Despite these efforts, the difficult economic situation led to a higher mortality rate, especially among the more vulnerable groups, such as the elderly and children. Italy's fragility at the time was starkly revealed. The cold wave was an unexpected event, difficult to mitigate with the knowledge available then. The consequences of this frost were severe. Rivers in northern Italy froze, glacial lakes solidified, and even the Venetian lagoon froze. It is said that the banks of the Tiber River began to freeze, while the Arno River in Florence completely froze. Water sources and springs were frozen as well. Not only was food scarce, but drinking water was also unavailable. At that time, the Po Valley was covered by vast forests, and several snowfalls were recorded, with reports of up to 1.5 meters of snow in Milan and 1 meter of snow in Turin. Grapevines and olive orchards in central Italy, particularly in Apulia, were extensively and repeatedly damaged due to the prolonged frost. The summer of 1709 became a period of famine because of the agricultural damage caused by this extraordinary cold. In 1709, agricultural Europe relied heavily on grains, vineyards, and livestock. Severe frost damaged plants, burning their tissues and causing the death of fruit trees, vines, and olive trees. Wheat and rye crops suffered devastating losses, heralding widespread famine and food insecurity. In regions like France, cities such as Paris and Germany, with settlements like Berlin, agriculture was severely harmed. Farmers, deprived of the normal seasonal cycle, were unable to plant seeds properly while food reserves were rapidly consumed. In these areas, the entire year of 1709 was marked by famine, and it took years for the situation in Central Europe to return to normal, especially since other frost waves occurred in subsequent years, though none could compare to that of 1709. The climate fluctuations also impacted wildlife. Migrating birds and small to medium-sized mammals struggled to find food and shelter. The European ecosystem, already strained by the agricultural practices of the time, faced additional pressure. In central Italy, where olive cultivation held traditional importance, the loss of many century-old plants created a void in the agricultural landscape, and the consequences were felt for years. This scenario, made more fragile by the economic and agricultural system that almost entirely depended on land rental, highlighted the vulnerability of pre-industrial societies in the face of climate crises. The frost wave of 1709 is a significant moment in European history. Records from that time, including diaries, letters, and administrative documents, describe a climatic period that disturbed established balances and tested the resilience of the population. The experience of this bitter cold, widely documented in cities like London, Vienna, Naples, and Madrid, provides insight into how people responded to harsh environmental conditions in the past. This unique winter stimulated thinking about climate cycles and the necessity of adapting to weather fluctuations in the following decades. From a scientific perspective, studying extreme events like the winter of 1709 helps understand natural climate variability and the interaction of astronomical, atmospheric, and volcanic factors. Analyzing historical documents, ancient climate data, and dendrochronology expands the temporal perspective beyond the short term. This is crucial today as the scientific community seeks to interpret phenomena linked to current climate change. Comparing past cold periods with contemporary events provides insights into the differences between natural phenomena, such as cyclical climate fluctuations and changes driven by human activities. The memory of what happened in 1709 endures across the centuries. Many historians and eyewitnesses of those dreadful weeks described ice sheets that covered the rivers of Italy and Europe, the glittering plates of ice in the winter sunlight, and the despair of farmers seeing their lost crops. The works of past historians, geographers, and naturalists, along with modern climate studies, paint a complex picture of that frost wave. The drama faced by Europe at the time illustrates how, even without the technological tools of today, societies were still able to adapt. However, the human and economic cost was a heavy price for slow and forced adaptation.